We've seen him at times, have this kind of form. And then, of course, there's been a couple of injuries along the way. He hasn't been able to get into the Mexican side as their steady number 9 for a couple of managers now, Jimmy. There's been a couple of managers in a row who haven't used him as the number 9. So that's really interesting.
Back to the Milan derby. Inter currently sit in second, 3 points behind Napoli at the top of the table. They've only lost once all season. That was to Milan a little bit earlier in the year. Milan currently sit in 7th on 34 points, but they're only 5 points out of the top 4, only a couple points behind Juventus, but 19 points off of Napoli, they're not winning the Scudetto this year. That was a really long way of me saying that Milan not winning the Scudetto, but they can try to make it hard for their biggest rival, Inter. So we'll see if they can make that happen and win the double. It would be a triple, right? Since they beat them in the Supercoppa as well. That would be pretty remarkable if Milan could win 3 straight games against a very good Inter team, who I would put as a dark horse to win the Champions League. They're plus 1,400 right now. That's pretty crazy, all things considered. Yeah. I know Milan have a game in hand, but let's talk about Christian Pulisic, because the guy's super steady. I love that about his game. You can count on him to give you a 7 or 8 out of 10 every time he steps on the field. And really, I think what was holding him back before was just injuries, right? He just couldn't find that rhythm. And similar to what we were saying about Gimenez, he's getting that trust. Like, even if he makes a mistake, it's not the end of the world. And it takes a while for young players to get into that position. And we see now that Christian has evolved into a very good professional. And I've been really impressed by how he's performed. He found a way to score once again. Maybe the goalkeeper should save it, but who gives a shit, right? It hits the back of the net. It gives Milan a chance to potentially get back into this game. And he's still fighting and trying to make plays happen. And again, I can't say enough about his mental and emotional capacity to stay focused, not get caught up in all the other stuff like Musa did, and try to make plays and keep driving Milan's attack. One of their most important players, if not the most important player for Milan this season. He scored his 4th goal in the Champions League, which is the most ever for an American. We give this guy his flowers pretty much every weekend. I wonder how he's going to perform against Inter, because they're going to be stacking him up at this point. And I guess that's the next challenge.
Well, do you remember? Right? Do you remember the goal he scored against Inter?
He did.
The one he dribbled down the middle, and he actually did it before the goal too. It didn't score, and then he did it again and scored in that derby. And remember, that was Fonseca's job on the line. He was getting fired if they didn't win the derby. If you can recall back to that moment. So he saved his job for a little while. So hopefully he's got an edge about him, man. I think he gets he's a great kid. If you know him, he's a great kid, and I'm lucky enough to know him and the family. And I think we're seeing it in the doc, right? The 2 episodes of the documentary on Paramount. We're getting an idea of who he is, but the kid's got he's got fire in him, man. He wants to win at everything. Just some people do it in a different way. I think you and me, when we played, we were a little bit, I don't want to say louder, but more vocal about it, right? We wore our heart on our sleeve type thing. He just goes about it in a different way. And some people, I think, interpret that sometimes as he doesn't have the fire. I would suggest that I would never make that mistake with Christian, having known him since coming up through the youth national teams. When he was, I think the first time I saw him, he was 14 years old. And I'd heard about him because, I played club ball with his dad. And he always had it. He just has it in a different way that doesn't translate to the way some people want to see you have fire. It's just a different way.
All right. So a couple things to note then for this Milan derby that's happening again on Sunday on Paramount Plus is Christian Pulisic. He's going to get stacked up by Inter. He's going to be a marked man. Can he still find space and have success? So that's one to watch. Yunus Musa got a red card in this one. He'll be available for this game. But has he lost Conceição's trust because he lost his cool? Something to keep in mind. I think we'll see him start, but we'll have to wait and see. And then the last one, Big Tones, this is actually not a note for the game. This is just the next note about Milan. They may be getting another player from CONCACAF, Mexican international Santi Giménez from Feyenoord, who, even though we've seen limping after their most recent Champions League game, has been excellent. And his game against Bayern Munich last match day was fantastic, and I think really demonstrated how good he can be in so many different ways. Can get in behind, can hold the ball up, can look to combine. Good finisher. How are you going to feel if this goes through? Because Alvaro Morata looks like he's on his way to Galatasaray. Having a Mexican international on your favorite club team, Big Tones. I mean, can you as an American international, can you support a Mexican international on your favorite club? How does that work? I don't know what the rules are.
I've worked this out in my head. And if this happens, of course, and it seems like it's getting closer, I'm like, when he scores, because I'm like, yeah, Milan. Like when that's what I'm going. Yeah, Milan. That's what I'm going with.
Just the generic, yeah, Milan.
It's Milan. When Christian scores, I'm like Pulisic, and I'm going nuts.
Right.
And that's going to be Who knows?
So
I think it's an interesting move.
I was going to say, you bring in Gimenez into the team. Morata, Tammy Abraham, not really panning out the way that everybody hoped they would. Again, Morata probably on the move to Turkey. Abraham will have to wait and see. But what do you think Gimenez does? And do you think that will help create space for Christian to have even more success?
Well, I think what they need is somebody to occupy forwards. I'm a fan of Morata, and I think this is interesting because he signed a 4-year deal at Milan. But it will give a reference point up top because Morata likes to play so deep. Can he get on the end of things? The whole connection with Pulisic and Gimenez and those two being on the same team will be interesting. Of course, they'll get along and they'll fight like crazy for Milan. But he's hot right now. Did he score 1 or 2 yesterday? I can't remember. We saw 36 games in the last 2 days, which is like never do that to yourself again until next year, of course. But he's in form right now. We've seen him at times, have this kind of form. And then, of course, there's been a couple of injuries along the way. He hasn't been able to get into the Mexican side as their steady number 9 for a couple of managers now, Jimmy. There's been a couple of managers in a row who haven't used him as the number 9. So that's really interesting. But the hope is that if this does happen, of course, then he and Christian will get on the same page pretty quickly. But I'll be the Milan guy when he scores. So
I wonder how
it's an interesting move.
Celebrate when Christian assists Gimenez on a goal. But
great ball, Christian. Yeah, great ball, Christian.
Yeah, well, Santi's been playing out of his mind, to be honest. He had a goal in this game against Lille. They lost 6-1, but he had the lone goal. He came out in the 28th minute. Again, there was some video of him kind of hobbling after the game. I'll have to wait and see the significance of that injury, how severe it is, I should say. But the guy's been absolutely on fire. He's got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got 10 goals in his last 10 games. He's got an assist in there as well. The game that I was really the most impressed with was that Bayern Munich game where he had 2 goals, backing that up with another one against Lille in European competition. He's another one from our area of the world in CONCACAF where he continues to evolve and grow and is taking the most of his opportunities. And we'll see if that translates into what Milan is doing if he can get over there and obviously be healthy.